The Tour is the toughest event on the planet. 21 stages in 3 weeks. Over 3,500 kilometers of racing over some of the biggest climbs and steepest gradients in Europe. The riders who compete in it are considered some of the fittest athletes in the world. Their VO2 max systems are off the charts and their cardiovascular systems are out of this world. But in today's video, we're going to break down what that much racing does to their bodies, the adaptations, the damage, and the lessons you can take away for your own training. VO2 max is one of the gold standards of endurance capacity. This is where tour riders shine. Many tour riders sit between 75 and 90 VO2 max. Compare this to 35 to 50 for most recreational athletes and you see why they are the best athletes in the world. They have huge stroke volume with their heart rate sitting below 30 beats per minute at rest, their hearts beating hard and slow. But fitness doesn't scale forever. A 2017 review, Lagersh et al. Found that more training isn't always better. In fact, extreme training volumes can increase the risk of atrial fibrillation, heart rhythm issues, and inflammatory damage, a potential fatal health issue. There's even a U-shaped curve. Beyond a certain point, the benefits plateau and the risks rise dramatically. So while tour riders are operating at an elite physiological level, they're also riding dangerously close to some pretty serious health implications. Riders don't go into the Tour de France blind. To keep riders functioning through the relentless event, teams monitor nearly everything, almost hourly throughout the duration of the event. Hemoglobin and ferritin levels are tracked both in the training camps on the lead up to the Tour de France and during the Tour de France to make sure there's no risk of athletes developing sports-induced anemia. With high volumes of racing and training, red blood cell breakdown is a real risk, also known as hemolysis. In extreme cases, which not only reduces oxygen carrying capacity, but also can lead to things like fatigue and reduced recovery. Not only this, but weight is measured before and after every single stage. Riders can lose 2 to 3 kilos in water weight per stage, most of that being sweat loss. But if not managed properly, dehydration affects blood volume, thermal regulation, and performance the next day. Over the past few years, we've seen a massive rise in health tracking for both amateurs and professionals. The likes of Whoop sponsoring major athletes like Mathieu van der Poel, which means that almost all pros will now be daily tracking their sleep and HRV. A drop in HRV or a few nights of disrupted sleep can be the first signs of overreaching, giving the team time to intervene before full-blown overtraining sets in. Even the rider's hygiene is taken extremely seriously. The likes of Team Sky back in the day had separate washing machines per rider to make sure that saddle sores and other skin infections were not contaminated across other riders. Now, although the riders are going through massive crowds of people where infection risk could be slightly higher, the teams do everything they can to control this. Riders will be sanitizing their hands before sitting down to eat any meal, and before anybody comes on and off of the team bus, there's usually a hand sanitizer dispenser at the entrance to the bus. In the third week of a Grand Tour, the rider's immunity is so suppressed that a simple stomach bug or virus could end a rider's race. As one team doctor put it, managing a tour rider is like flying a fighter jet, finely tuned, powerful, but always on the edge of failure without constant input and adjustment. So even with all that tech and medical insight, with doctors watching over each individual rider, there's still a price to be paid for pushing your body to the limit for 3 weeks in a row. A major performance implication for riders is red blood cell breakdown, also known as hemolysis. This comes from repetitive stress and dehydration. Hemoglobin in riders can often drop 2 to 3 grams per deciliter by the end of the race. Osteoporosis is something that affects riders all year round, but after months of weight cut to get in the best shape they can for the Tour de France, this can be extremely prevalent as riders likely won't have been doing any weight training on the lead up to the Tour. A 2023 study found that male pros can have 10 to 15% lower spine and hip bone density due to non-weight bearing training and low energy intake. Hilkins et al. Immune suppression. It's not uncommon to watch the third week of the Grand Tour and riders are dropping like flies, with stomach bugs from shared hotels, bad food, or simply the fans getting too close to the riders and spreading viral infections. It's said that around 40% of riders get sick at some point during a Grand Tour by Dr. Alan Lim. High cortisol levels and chronic energy deficit weakens defense systems. Hormonal suppression is something that gets talked about more and more these days. We're now well aware of the impact lower testosterone can have on a rider's recovery. Studies show testosterone and cortisol levels crash in week 3. Lucia et al. 2001. This can lead to riders suffering all kinds of consequences, like worse recovery, poor mood, and the thing that potentially harms their performance the most is that with reduced testosterone can come added water weight gain, which can absolutely decimate a rider's performance in the third week of a tour. Last but not least is relative energy deficit in sport. Now this has been hot on the press with the likes of Lionel Sanders and many other triathletes falling victim to this, but it's not uncommon in the world of cycling either. With even the smallest mistake in weight loss, nutrition, and recovery, the whole body can begin conserving, down-regulating metabolism, disrupting your sleep, leading to poorer recovery and increased injury risk. As I said before, all of this can lead to worse performance on the bike with retained water weight that actually makes you slower on the climbs. Now in the third week of a Grand Tour, where even just an additional 1 kilogram of body weight could lead to you losing 30 to 60 seconds over the course of the Alpe d'Huez. That's the difference between winning or losing the Tour. Now you can see why teams put so much effort and have so many medical staff just monitoring every aspect of the rider, because even the smallest mistake mistake could lead to losing the biggest race of the year. So how does all of this apply to you? You don't have a team doctor, you don't have somebody monitoring your blood and urine samples every single day of the Tour de France. So what are the lessons you can take away from this video to apply to your own training and help you be the best rider you can? Well, for a start, you're not racing 200 kilometers every day for 3 weeks, but a lot of these lessons still apply. If you train hard, you need to recover hard too. And that's where one of the most important metrics of all comes in, and that's listening to your own body. Your body has developed over thousands of years to give very good feedback on when not to push hard and when to push hard. You can start by beginning to track your own personal trends, so you can cut out some of the noise and know when it really is time to go easy and when it is time to push on. Now, I would recommend, if you have the means, to start tracking your morning heart rate and HRV. These are only metrics and data, but it can really help build a picture over time once you start noticing the trends between how you feel on the bike and what that related to in terms of HRV. This can really give good insights. Don't rely purely on readiness scores that you get given by this tech hardware, as they're not always the most accurate to how you feel on the bike, but it could be a sign of overtraining if they start to trend downwards over several days consecutively. Above HRV and heart rate tracking is sleep tracking. Now, this really is something that I don't think is negotiable. It's so easy and so cheap to get hold of these days that you really should be tracking your sleep if you're looking to maximize performance. Now, a bad night's sleep here or there might not be the end of the world, but if you notice consistently disrupted sleep, this can often be attributed to overtraining. You don't need to become a lab rat and start monitoring every aspect of your sleep, but just paying attention to how you feel when you wake up in the morning can be a very good indicator of how you're going to be on the bike. Your mood, your motivation and appetite also offer a real insight into how you're feeling. When these start to slip, it's your nervous system asking for help. But if you have the means, some basic blood work can really help paint a bigger picture. It's not uncommon for amateur athletes to suffer from the likes of anemia. So some regular blood work, whether that's 3 or 6 months, with some basic biomarkers can really help paint a bigger picture of your performance and what might be holding you back. Ferritin and hemoglobin are two key numbers. Low levels won't always feel obvious, but they can drag your performance down quietly. And don't overlook recovery. Rest days aren't lazy. A long-standing pro metaphor that I'm sure everybody's heard is don't stand when you can sit and don't sit when you can lie down. Pro riders don't ride the bike every single day of the year. Even pro cyclists have full days off the bike, and don't be afraid to have one as well. Some days you just really need to let your body recover, and that might be what you need. If you feel your performance starting to suffer, maybe that's the time for a rest day. Luckily for you, you can decide when your rest days are, unlike pros who have them scheduled into a 3-week race. And finally, be cautious chasing extreme leanness. Tour riders are getting down to 5 to 7% body fat for the 3 weeks of the race. Now, they are monitored daily by doctors and medical staff. They have skin fold tests done on the lead up to the Tour de France to make sure they're not losing too much fat too quickly. You probably don't have that luxury, so I would really hesitate if you're trying to chase these numbers. The risks of reds, fatigue, muscle loss just really aren't worth it. I wouldn't be chasing extreme leanness just for the sake of a couple seconds on a KOM. There's much lower hanging fruit to be gained than that. Finally, here's some pro tips on how you can recognize overtraining in your own life. Now, if a rider is noticing signs of overtraining in the Tour de France, it's probably too late. They're just going to have to suffer through a stage, but you don't have to because you're not in a race. Now, here's what you can look out for to stop it before it gets too serious. The first sign of overtraining or burnout is often fatigue that doesn't go away with the rest. You feel flat, both on and off the bike, and your motivation starts to fade. Sleep becomes inconsistent, you might go to bed earlier, but you're waking up unrested. That's your nervous system waving a white flag. Another obvious thing, but often gets overlooked by so many riders, is that their power numbers start to decline. It can start with just one bad session, but then it turns into 2, 3, 4, and that becomes your new normal. You end up pushing through it, hoping to chase those power numbers you had from the weeks before, but all you're doing is digging your hole deeper. Next up is your immune system. Your body's crying out for help, and it makes you sick to try and force your body to rest and recover. You get sick more often, a sore throat, a runny nose, a virus that lingers longer than it should, all signs that your bodies can't keep up. And finally, one that maybe your partner or people living with you will notice is your mood starts to change. Irritability, low libido, or just feeling emotionally drained are all part of the picture. You can find yourselves getting into petty arguments with those you live with over nothing. This can be a clear sign that if you've had one too many arguments recently, that maybe you're pushing it too hard and you need to take a step back. And I can tell you from personal experience, I've had months where I've trained too hard for too long. I've had coaches question my performance and all I did was train harder, only to be diagnosed with an immune deficiency to find out that was the reason I was getting ill all the time. But my advice to you would be listen to your body at all costs. It usually knows best. But if you feel like you're doing everything you can, but you're just not moving forwards, and it's not a case of training too much, then maybe it's time to look a bit deeper. Order some blood work, look into your sleep, look into your tracking. Data at the end of the day is just data. It's how we interpret the data, and that's how we get the real value. So the more data you have, the bigger a picture you can paint. Sometimes it takes real skill to interpret the data and find and separate the noise from the truth. Tour riders have staff monitoring every aspect of their performance, from urine to blood to mood to sleep. You don't have that support staff, so you need to become your own support crew and understand what works for you and what doesn't. Know when to push on and when to ease off. There's no coach who can tell you how you feel in the morning. There's no coach who can There's no coach who can tell exactly from your HRV how well you're going to go on the bike, and that's a skill you need to develop if you want to be the best rider you can be. So we've seen in this video just the toll that the Tour de France can take on a rider's body. Team spends huge amounts of money trying to avoid riders from blowing up during the 3-week race, but sometimes it's still not enough, and riders blow up in spectacular fashion going out the back of the bunch. We often don't find out exactly why the rider blew up, but it could be something as simple as illness, losing weight too quickly, water retention, or not enough heat training, and we see these riders really suffer for it. Now luckily for you and me, we don't have to suffer that same problem. We can monitor our own training, monitor how we feel, and choose when we need to have a rest day. We don't have to suffer through it. So the take home message is train hard, but recover even harder. Listen to your body, know when to push on, and know when to take it easy. Watch for the signals, respect your body, and remember, the real gains come in the overcompensation periods when you're recovering, not when you're banging your head against the wall, digging yourself a deeper hole, where you're getting more and more and more fatigued. If you want more cycling tips like this, then go down to the description. There's a link there where you can put your email in, and I'll send you a free cycling tip on how to improve your cycling performance for 30 days. And I'll send you 30 ways to improve your cycling in 30 days for free. And I'll send the first tip in 5 minutes. And if you like more of that content, you'd like to see it, then hit the like and subscribe, because there's more Tour de France content coming very soon. Thanks for watching.